All right, good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming. I want to thank all the candidates for coming, especially. It's great to have you here. We'd like to begin, as we begin all things, with a prayer for peace and truth. In the name of the Father, the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Hail Mary.
Full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Saint Therese.
Pray for us.
Saint John the Baptist.
Pray for us.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
All right.
Again, if you can find a seat, please take a seat at this time. If you would like to sit down, standing room is fine. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our Candidates Forum here at St. John's this evening. My name is Wayne White, and I will be your moderator this evening. I am a resident of Lake Frederick, the retirement community, and a parishioner at Sacred Heart Parish up in Winchester. On behalf of the sponsors of the event, the Front Royal Catholic Civic Education Group, I would especially like to welcome and thank our candidates for their participation tonight. We greatly appreciate the opportunity for them to share their positions and thoughts on the issues for the upcoming election. I want to thank Father Guy and the parishioners of St. John's for allowing us the privilege of using Father Rule Hall tonight for this event. As a moderator, my job is simple. It's to facilitate the forum, ask the questions of the candidates, and to ensure that we stay on time, providing a fair and equal opportunity for the candidates to share their positions, opinions on the issues to better inform this voting community. So ladies and gentlemen, at this time, let me introduce you. Many of you know them already, our candidates for the forum this evening. For the Front Royal Town Council, Amber Morris. Amber, please stand. Also for the Town Council, Bruce Rappaport. For the Warren County School Board, the candidates are from the 4th District, Al Gunn. For the Happy Creek District, Antoinette Funk. Stephanie Short. For the North River District, Melanie Salins. Thank you, candidates. Please take your seat. Please note, ladies and gentlemen, that Andrea Lowe from the 4th District and Angela Robinson of the North River District candidate were invited but decided not to attend this evening. So before we get started, I have a few administrative announcements to make. I want, first of all, for the safety of this evening, I want you to note the emergency exits so that we can exit the room and the building in an orderly and safe manner if there is an emergency situation. The door at the rear of the hall leads to the stairs where you entered the building tonight. The other exit is in the front of the room, right behind the candidates. And through that door, you would take the stairs up one flight. There'd be a door on the right, and that'll take you out of the building to the street. This is not a political rally or a campaign event. It is, however, an open public forum held on private property. We are fortunate to have the local media in attendance tonight, and we thank them for their interest. Out of respect for the candidates and as well as for everyone else, we want to have a good and open discussion without incident. Although we anticipate a good dialogue, any disruptions will be immediately addressed, and if necessary, I will ask the person or persons to kindly leave the hall. At this time, I would ask that you would please silence your cell phones and all electronic devices if you have not already done so. For the St. John parishioners, you were handed 3x5 cards tonight. Please fill those out if you volunteer to do so. The sponsors for tonight's event would appreciate your name, email address in order that they can provide you with future information on local politics and civic actions in the area. This is completely voluntary. And on your way out, Felix Stenfels in the back of the hall. Where's Felix? There he is. We'll be collecting the cards, and he can help you fill those out if you don't have a pencil to write with. So you can end those in at the end of the evening. It's been a long day. So now let me tell you how we're going to conduct tonight's forum. Each candidate will have 3 minutes to introduce themselves and make opening remarks about their candidacy and the office in which they're running for. Following the opening remarks for all of them, we will ask a series of questions. There are 3 questions for town council candidates, and we have 4 questions for the candidates for the school board. For ensuring equitable time for all candidates to answer all questions, we will allow 2 minutes for each answer. However, since we've had a couple of folks not participate tonight, we will modify that as we go along for the sake of time, and we won't interrupt any of the candidates as they try to complete their positions or their statements. Mr. Mark Eggers will be the official timekeeper, and he will inform me when there is 30 seconds left. He's got the big sign right up front. He will signal the candidates, and they will know that their time is limited to about 30 more seconds. There will be no questions from the audience tonight. We also ask for your utmost respect during the event, that you refrain from comments at any time during the candidates' answers. Following the questions and the answer session, each candidate will then have 3 more minutes to make closing remarks. After their final remarks, we will conclude the event. The candidates have agreed to remain here in the hall after the forum to meet with you on a one-to-one basis if you may have additional questions about any of the discussions this evening. So before we get started with the question session and the introductions of the candidates, I want to give you a background on the questions that we will ask tonight. So about 3 months ago, the sponsoring organization for tonight's program, the Front Royal Catholic Civics Education Group, drafted a set of questions they wanted to ask candidates for the Front Royal Town Council and the Warren County School Board at this forum. These questions were sent to the Diocese of Arlington, Virginia, where they were reviewed. The questions we will ask this evening have been jointly approved by the St. John's Catholic Parish here in Front Royal in the Diocese of Arlington. So at this time, I'm going to ask the candidates to give their opening remarks. We're going to begin with the town council candidates, and Amber Morris, please.
Would you like us to remain seated or stand?
You may do so however you feel comfortable with.
Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for having us here tonight. I'm your conservative, Republican-endorsed Front Royal Town Council candidate, Amber Faith Morris. I'm a mother of 3 up-and-coming freedom fighters, a Christian, a full-time residential mortgage broker, the treasurer of the Warren County Republican Committee, the chairwoman of the Housing Selection Committee for the Habitat for Humanity, and a Front Royal Little League volunteer. For the last 10 years, I've been a conservative community activist, dedicating my time to causes such as Birth Local, where I worked with a group of individuals and employees of the Guiding Star Project to try and save local women's care. I hosted the Second Amendment rally at the Gazebo in Front Royal that garnered hundreds of participants and statewide recognition to support our county supervisors in making Warren County a Second Amendment sanctuary. I have worked with conservatives like Scott Lloyd to support bodily autonomy and bring together those who felt unsafe to speak out for injustices being brought before them, and Hillary Horner to present a resolution to the Warren County Board of Supervisors to make Warren County a sanctuary county for all constitutional rights. And I've been vocal at the Warren County School Board meetings. I've spoken out at almost every meeting to protect our children, to protect our parental rights, to preserve our children's rights to an unmasked face and fresh air, and to protect them from exposure to the perverted state of Virginia's outline for our school board's education system. As a victim of someone who was not only charged but convicted in Warren County Public Schools almost 2 decades ago for peeping, I know how dangerous these transgender bathrooms will be. They will serve as a loophole for predators and continue to cause confusion for the confused and misguided children. For the last 10 years, I have worked tirelessly to elect conservative Republican candidates on a local, state, and federal level, such as Donald J. Trump in 2016 and again in 2020, Cynthia Dunbar for Congress, Bishop E.W. Jackson for the United States Senate, Jake Meza for the Front Royal Town Council, as well as Scott Lloyd, Joe McFadden, and many, many more. I want to serve the Front Royal Town Council to extend the core values and principles of the Republican Party in a way that will enhance personal rights and liberties. Thank you.
Bruce, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you for having me tonight. My name is Bruce Rappaport, and I'm a native of Front Royal. I grew up here. My family opened a business in 1911, and it was a family clothing business, and we the business existed until 2003. I went to school in the Warren County school system. I graduated in 1974. Played sports while I was in high school, varsity, letters, whatnot. And I went on to school in the university, graduated with a Bachelor of Science in Management. I have 30 years of experience in supply chain management. I've been a member of the Association of Supply Chain Management for 30 years. I work with manufacturing businesses, aerospace. I've also worked for Westinghouse Air Brake Systems, electronic trains into train units that we're building. I'm working presently in a long-range rifle company. We make high-end rifles, sell to police, SWAT teams, and military. I have the skills for leadership in the community, and I would hope that you will give me consideration. I'm a conservative. I believe in pro-life. I'm a person that believes in individual freedoms, and I also believe that we are what we are as we are born. We're men, we're women. I don't believe that bathrooms should be shared. I'm a Second Amendment guy. I believe in controlling our spending within the organization. Low taxes. I don't want our taxes to go up because our property values have gone up. I believe in equalization, smart growth. Law enforcement is important. We need our police. We need to have a blight abatement plan for tourism, because tourism is a $1.8 million, $1.8 trillion industry that we need to get a portion of it. And our water needs are significant. Our water needs are really big time in this community. We're looking at an opportunity to lose some water options with Frederick Water now looking at coming into Warren County. So that's something to look at with regard to the redundant water line, whether or not we should be doing it. Redundant waste, our EDA system, the town wants to have their own EDA. We already have an EDA. I don't want to waste the taxpayers' money on it as well. Thank you very much.
We'll hear opening remarks now from the school board candidates. Al Gunn, please.
Good evening, and thank you for allowing me to address you this evening. My name is Al Gunn, Albert, and I'm seeking your support for a write-in candidacy for the 4th District. I'd like to begin by telling you a bit about myself and my reasons for candidacy. First, about myself. I'm a father, husband, teacher, St. John's parishioner, and one who chose to come to Front Royal out of a long-time appreciation of what makes Front Royal exceptional. Though I have taught for nearly 20 years, some of my first experiences at Front Royal came from when I was teaching at Christendom as an adjunct back in the early '00s. Those encounters, along with the experiences we had when visiting family here, filled us with a true appreciation for what makes living in this part of the valley different and the types of community which have grown up here. We came to appreciate that these communities were, frankly, just not possible in the Northern Virginia where we came from. Though we were involved with our parish in Northern Virginia, St. John the Beloved, it was always something extra outside of whatever other communities we were involved with. And with the most important element of community, family, usually is an afterthought. So when God blessed us with our son Teddy, we prayed, thought, and talked about the community we wanted him to grow up in. And we discerned that that community was Front Royal, a community that we could see was based on family. At that point, though I'd been teaching in Fairfax County Public Schools for 10 years, with all the seniority, pension, and advantages that provided, we decided to take an opportunity that had been offered at Chelsea Academy, where I first taught and then served as Dean of Men, Director of Activities, and Latin and Religion teacher. Things didn't work out for us at Chelsea exactly the way we'd hoped, so I'm back teaching at Fairfax County now for the past 4 years, spending the pre-dawn hours with many of you, I'm sure, on 66. But even with all the driving and car repairs and rushing back to coach practice down to the Soccerplex, our family agrees the decision was worth it. When friends came to me and asked if I'd run for school board, something which frankly I was a bit nervous about, not being someone who'd run for office before, I listened to their concerns. And in response to their request, I can say this. As a teacher who's taught for nearly 20 years in public, private, post-secondary, as someone who's coached in schools and outside of them, as someone who's volunteered at parish youth groups and with the Knights of Columbus, as someone who has served on curriculum development and grading policy groups for huge counties and small schools, and finally as the father of a 6-year-old just getting ready to start his school career, I do have some idea of the problems facing students and their parents in Front Royal today. But perhaps I ought to let Governor McAuliffe say it, as he said it so clearly and repeatedly several days ago, acknowledging that, quote, he doesn't think parents should be telling schools what to teach. Of course, this is the exact opposite of the truth, as is so often the case with Governor McAuliffe. But clearly he meant it. He said it more than once. But in saying it, McAuliffe unwittingly, or maybe wittingly, gave away the central conflict in education, and one that must be resolved before trying to do anything else to fix the schools. For parents are the primary educators of their children. They're not just stakeholders or advocates or even primary stakeholders. They are the primary educators, and professional educators are secondary, auxiliary, and answer to the parents. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Antoinette Funk, and I believe I am the premier candidate for the Warren County School Board Happy Creek District seat. I bring experience, education, and passion to the seat. In representing the constituents of the district, and most importantly, our students, I will bring over 22 years of experience working in the schools as a teacher, an administrator, and a district administrator. I have a deep and rich educational background and a strong, proven passion for education and supporting our most cherished commodity, our students. Now more than ever, with all of our recent events, our students in Warren County need a voice that will advocate their needs and work to sustain their needs throughout. I want to see integrity, accountability, and transparency across our system in every building. I will work collaboratively with all of our stakeholders to serve and provide leadership and guidance to our schools, where all of our students can make progress and thrive. I am an educator, a lifelong learner, a mentor both in my current county and at Shenandoah University. And most importantly, I am a mother. I have been an advocate for my boys for 17 years. I have been a vocal special needs advocate for my son for 15 years. It is my responsibility to oversee my children and take part in their education. And that is exactly what I do, day in and day out. And I have worked with a lot of people from birth to 3 through our public school system
to do just that, because I am their strongest advocate. I believe parents should be that advocate. We know our children best. I'm a former Samuels Public Library board member, a former officer of the SEAC, our local Special Education Advisory Council. I'm a Rotarian, and I'm a current Northwestern Community Services Board member. I believe that solid foundations begin at home through building a positive relationship with our kids, and then it is flourished more when we build a positive relationship with our public school. We will all benefit from education. Every one of us can benefit when we educate our students. All these highlights plus many more give me the personal, unique, and institutional knowledge and perspective to provide the leadership and guidance that every student and staff deserve. I understand the challenges of the system. I understand the challenges that parents go through. I'm capable and committed to promoting a fiscally sound budget, student achievement success, and supporting all of our stakeholders. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you all today and for organizing it and inviting all of us here so we can let you all know what we stand for. So I pulled my long sheets out, I'm sorry. I've lived in Warren County for over 20 years with my husband and 4 boys. I have experience in all kinds of educational settings. My boys have attended private school, homeschooled, an online accredited program, and have attended public school. My oldest 2 are actually graduates of Warren County High School. I've also been a firm advocate with special needs, with 3 of my 4 boys having special needs. I am choosing to run for school board representative because I believe that we need to improve the quality of the education in our public schools in Warren County. We need to eliminate the ideology and political agenda that has been pushed upon our families. Public schools are for educating, not indoctrinating. I do not agree with the Virginia Department of Ed's transgender policy and think we need to protect all children. I also do not agree with the critical race, CRT, or whatever other name they give it, that it should not be taught in school. This theory is already being taught to teachers under the guise of culture compliancy training. In order for them to receive their recertification, they have to take that class. The state has also started putting CRT elements into the curriculum, while Warren County itself, that I know of, has not actually implemented any of this into their schools. This is an issue that everyone should be aware of. We also need a school board that is transparent in their finances, ensuring that teachers and staff have resources that they need to help the students be successful. I would like to see a line-by-line audit of the current school budget. We have about 5,000 children of the 6,400 school-aged kids in Warren County that attend the public schools. We have a $64 million budget. Where is all that money going to? We need to find out, make sure that it is being spent where it needs to go, and that it is helping the students and helping them succeed. Finally, I fully believe in parental rights. Parents are the parents, the primary educators and providers of the children for which they brought into this world. They have the right to choose what is best for their children. I feel that by not being a current part of the school system, as in a teacher or an employee, along with my years of experience as a parent in different educational settings, including choosing my own children's curriculum, that I would benefit the community and the school board as I would bring a unique perspective to the board. I'm a conservative parent who believes in parental rights and school board accountability. By becoming a member of the school board, I hope to make a positive change in the quality of our education system while upholding the true American values and conservative Christian values that we all share. I hope to help our families and our students succeed. Thank you.
Before I begin talking about myself, I wanted to talk about the people who put this event together. They put in a ton of work to pull this together and keep tonight running smoothly. I want to thank St. John's Church, the organizers, and everyone who came out tonight. My name is Melanie Salins. I was recently appointed to
to the North River District School Board seat, and I am running for election to keep the seat so that I can continue to protect your parental rights. I grew up in Manassas. I was the oldest of 6 kids. My mom taught public school until she stayed home to raise us. My dad worked as a project manager, building schools and churches. Actually, he was very proud to tell me that when he was working for the diocese, he built St. John's. He now is a senior project manager for a large public school district. I grew up seeing his projects, and in the summer worked in his construction office. My stepmom has her doctorate and ran a school for students with dyslexia and was a professor at several local colleges. My family life has afforded me many opportunities that helped form my worldview. Growing up, I went to public school. I was in the Gifted and Talented program. I graduated with honors with an advanced diploma. I went to George Mason University on a full academic scholarship, and originally I planned to be a public school teacher. I was a high-level competitive gymnast. I began working at 13 years old. I am a coach by profession. I contracted with various middle and high schools in Northern Virginia to teach cheer tumble. So I was in the schools, I saw the behind the scenes, I talked to the parents and teachers, and I saw the trends that were beginning to emerge. I had the opportunity to work with special needs children during college when I was assisting a doctor with sensory motor integration therapy. Ultimately, I saw the direction public schools were headed, and I decided not to become a teacher. Instead, I went into field service work, underwriting reports, doing risk to value inspections. My husband and I have spent our entire married adult life living in Warren County. We've been here for about 17 years now. I am very fortunate that he is a wonderful provider and has given me the gift of being able to stay home to homeschool our 2 children. I currently teach PE at our local co-op, and I coach gymnastics as well. I have been blessed to have the time to pursue a variety of passion projects. I'm a health instructor for an international women's group to help women who are struggling with autoimmune disease and infertility. I am the Republican North River Magisterial District Chair. I co-founded Birth Local and Save Warren's Women's Care as an attempt to protect our local unborn population and the women carrying them. I co-founded the Warren County Coalition to help expose the corruption of the EDA scandal and the Good Old Boy Network ruling our community. I am well versed in how our local government operates and who the key players are. I have organized countless nonprofit and community activism events and fundraisers. I get my joy in life from giving to others in areas that have no benefit or personal gain for myself. I'm a hard worker, I'm inquisitive, I do my research. I am not afraid to speak for conservative values. I think I have a lot to offer the school board because I am not an educational insider. My perspective is wide, and I hope to bring innovative solutions. Thank you.
At this time, we'll now turn to the questions that we've provided for this evening, and we'll start with the town council. I've briefed all the candidates on how we're going to ask these questions as we rotate each question, or who gets the question first. So their understanding of how that's going to play out tonight. So we'll follow that format as we described earlier. All you have to do is just listen. Very simple. Okay, so the first question tonight is for the town council candidates. Question number 1. Prior to August 2021, a minority of 2 members of the town council could bring matters to public attention by placing them on the council's public meeting agenda. In August of this year, a majority of the town council voted to require the council's majority approval in order to place an item on the public meeting agenda. This restriction on the council's minority members and their issues was seen by many as an impediment to our democratic process and a significant lack of transparency therein. Please tell us if you agree with that change, why or why not. Amber, the first question is to you.
Thank you. So I will preface this by saying I do not agree with the change to have a majority or consensus to bring an issue to an agenda for town council. As somebody who has gone to our councilmen and women with an issue, it would be a slap in the face to know that they have no say in what actually takes place on the agenda in which they vote. I don't believe that council needs a consensus to even explore action items objectively. I love, respect, and appreciate the democracy that makes America great. Every single individual has a right to their opinion, and we elect officials to serve us. Therefore, those councilmen and women are, in reflection, serving the people who elected them to do that job, and they are a voice for us. Each council member should be able to represent their constituents without a majority. It leads to closed-mindedness, and there have been times where I've gone to the council or I've gone to a council meeting with an issue or an agenda item, and I've left there changing my opinion after hearing opinions of others. So I do not agree with that, and that would be one of the first things that I would want to address if elected to serve the Front Royal Town Council.
Bruce, please, your answer.
Okay, well, I'm going to speak from the heart on this one. I remember I went to a council meeting, I don't know, it was about a year and a half ago or so, and it had to do with the resizing of the government. And there were about 50 people there. And all these people, they were upset that all the players in the government were let go, fired, and the resizing of the government, and a lot of these folks felt that things were okay the way they were. And they were speaking from the heart with a lot of emotion. And regarding that, to answer this question, it's censorship. I had something that I wanted to say to them that day, and it was like they were cutting us off and claiming the Roberts Rule. And anyway, I looked up on the wall and it said, "In God we trust." And my words that came out of my mouth was, "In censorship we trust." So to answer the question, I don't agree with it at all. You ought to be able to voice your opinion at any time, because if there's one person that disagrees with it, then there's 10 people, and then there's another 10 people, and there's another 10 people. So we'd have to open things up. It's the conservative way. It's all about freedom, and it's about transparency, and pretty much that's all I have to say about it. Okay?
Just so that everyone knows, the candidates tonight were given a copy of these questions only as of tonight. So when they came in, I briefed them on these questions as they were sitting in front of them in their folders. So they had those tonight to look at as you were assembling in the hall. So just for a clarification on that, I just want everyone to know that. Bruce, this next question is to you first. In 2021, the town council decided to reduce the time for public comment on proposed issues and policy changes. Previously, major items required 2 readings, that is, they had to be addressed at 2 public hearings. This provided the public ample time to understand the proposed action and organize support or opposition. The council eliminated the requirement for a second reading. As a result, the council can now introduce and vote on a proposed issue or policy change at the same meeting. Question: do you think that the council's decision to eliminate the requirement for a second reading for proposed policy changes was a good idea? Please tell us whether you agree or disagree and why. Bruce, the first question to you.
Absolutely not. I don't agree. Again, it's a form of censorship. The idea of well, this goes back to, we used to have 2 meetings. We had 2 work sessions. We had 2 meetings, and it seems like that when you pile everything into one meeting, the public may know, half the time they don't even know when they're having a meeting down there. So the public is kind of like blocked out of what is going on. And that's very disturbing to me. I believe that there should be an opportunity for the public to hear what's going on in a second reading and voice their opinions on it. And I encourage you. I'm going to work sessions and there's hardly anyone there. I encourage you to go to work sessions because that's where all these things are talked about, and by the time they get to the meetings, I'm not saying that it's in the book, but the public needs to be. You need to tune in. You need to tune in to the sessions by video or whatever, so that you know what's going on. This is the transparency that I'm talking about. I'm speaking from the heart. Okay, thank you.
Yes. I do not think that it's the public's job to babysit the Front Royal Town Council, to put it politely and not politically correct. Constituents have jobs, they have families, they have obligations. Outside of micromanaging every single meeting, there needs to be more time and more transparency to address these issues. For the last week, I've been going over the Stantec water report that was received for 2019-2020. And for someone like me who's not in that field, and I'm just your average Joe, that water report is like studying a foreign language. And it would take time for me to be able to go and speak objectively to the council for my thoughts on a case-by-case basis for what they do with our town's water based on that report. I absolutely do not agree with it. I think it's a disservice to the community. There's currently a laundry list of processes and programs within the town that have not been updated for over a quarter of a century. And I intend to focus on those outdated codes and regulations. But with that being said, there's no strategic plan for the budget currently in the town of Front Royal that prioritizes funding based on priority. That's one thing I want to change, and that's something that the public input will be required for. There's no stormwater management plan in Front Royal right now. There's no business-friendly checklist for applicants planning to open a business here. It causes unnecessary spending for potential business owners. There's no checklist for permits, site plans, rezoning, special use permits, and exceptions. That's just to name a few of the laundry list of things. All of those things require public input. They deserve public input, and I want Front Royal to be business friendly, not only to open business, but to conduct business. And I think that making that move was absolutely the opposite message that we sent to everyone in the town of Front Royal. So I do not agree with that, and I do not think it was a good idea. Thank you.
Question 3, we'll start with Amber on this one as we rotate the first responders, if you will. In July of this year, the town council, considered a proposed emergency ordinance that would have prohibited businesses from requiring COVID-19 vaccinations as a condition for employment. Would you please tell us your position on that ordinance and whether you agree or disapprove of the proposal and why?
Yes, absolutely. I'd love to answer that. So Ronald Reagan said that government is not the solution to our problems. It's usually the problem. I have a hard time telling business owners what they do and don't have the right to do when they're a private business. It's wrong. Valley Health, however, is not a private business, and they receive tax incentives to be here, while also maintaining a monopoly in our community. As soon as the government gets involved with funding, you cannot violate civil rights. We waived hundreds of thousands of dollars in tap fees and more for Valley Health to be here, and we owe them nothing. I absolutely was in favor of the resolution or the ordinance, however, that Scott Lloyd presented to the Front Royal Town Council. I had several meetings with him, as well as many doctors, surgeons, nurses, nurse practitioners, and medical assistants who chose to take on losing their jobs and their livelihoods to not be forced for this. So I don't agree with telling private businesses what they can and they can't do with their businesses. However, I was in favor of that proposed ordinance, and I do not think that it is town council absolutely should have passed that ordinance. The same people who work at Valley Health, whether it's the hospital or any of the subsidies here, they pay our real estate taxes, they pay for our electric services. And the fact that they might not be able to pay those now because they've lost their jobs for choosing bodily autonomy and freedom instead of allowing their civil rights to be impeded on is just beyond me. So I agreed with that. Thank you.
What's your response to the question?
Well, my response to this question is, look, businesses, individuals, all have rights. We live in the United States, America, and people ought to be able to choose what they want to do. You know, personally, I believe in the vaccine. I took the shot, but I also respect the fact that people who don't should not be subjected to losing their jobs over over a decision that they make for themselves. So I'm looking at Valley Health. I'm going like, Valley Health, why didn't you give us a contingency option per se, weekly testing versus losing your job, or obviously taking a shot, but they have rights, individual have rights, it's an individual decision, and I respect that. When I think about Valley Health, I'm thinking about a lot of things. I'm thinking about, you know, if I'm on council, the next time that you want something, I want you to remember one thing. I want you to remember that you didn't give us a birthing unit, you didn't give us an ICU unit, and it's sort of like, lest we not forget, the next time you want something, keep that in mind. I mean, there's this place called Marengo, Iowa, population of 2,400, where the CEO there decided that he would eat $1 million so that his 2,400 population would have a birthing center. Valley Health, why can't you do that? So that's pretty much my answer, and appreciate you giving me the opportunity. Thank you.
I want to thank the town council for their responses to those questions as we move into the questions for the school board. So So the first question, Al Gunn will be the first respondent, and then we'll move down the line. The first question to the school board. The county's school budget has increased annually since 2012 despite declining enrollment each year. As a member of the school board, what, if any, adjustments would you recommend making to the current school budget? Please explain your position on the budget, any specific changes that you would make, and the reason for any change you would recommend.
Answering this question, I'd like to share a story with you about my own experience as a teacher and someone who came into the public educational institutions, not knowing really quite what to expect. As a young person, I went to private school, so my parents paid a lot of money for me to go, and I had that opportunity. And so when I began to teach public schools, I didn't really have a set of preconceptions about what they were like and what to expect. But when I first got there, they had just instituted a program at the school where I started teaching. And the program was called by the acronym PLT, which was Professional Learning Teams. And this was a way of reorganizing the school. So that the teachers would no longer meet in departments to discuss the curriculum and discipline, accountability, and things like that. And instead would meet small teams. So they would put the Spanish 3 teachers together and the English 2 teachers together, and they would have them teach this thing. And they asked me when I sat down for my interview, they said, do you think you can work in this collaborative environment? I said, sure, yeah, that's, I'm looking forward to meeting the other teachers and see what they have to. I'm a new teacher. I've only had a little experience with it, so yeah, I'd like to hear about that. Well, it turned out, just for my own sake, that I was paired up with a very nice French teacher, very nice German teacher. Actually, then I moved on to 2 French teachers, and then I was required to sit in the room while the French teachers talked about the French classes, and I did nothing because I wasn't allowed to grade papers, which is something teachers always need to do, and I never had enough time to do it. And if I ever tried to get out of the meeting, right, or just say, I could grade papers while they're talking about French too, they would say, and my principal would say, no, you have to sit in the meeting, this is collaborative, and you have to find a way to contribute, and they have to find a way for you to contribute. Well, it turned out that they had bought this program from a company. It's made by this couple. They're called the Dufours. And they have a big apparatus for distributing this around the country, and they had bought some of it, this program. But then, midstream, they had to change the name because they hadn't bought the license to the name, right? And they thought that was too much money, right? And so we changed the name, and now they're called CLTs. And they still exist in Fairfax County even to this day. So I had started out at the Pioneer School for this. And even now, I sit in these meetings with other teachers who don't teach my discipline. And I'm quiet, and I don't grade my papers. And the amount of money that has been spent on this program over the course, it's unbelievable. Because they had to buy it at first, then they had to buy another one to make up for the fact that that didn't work. And public education is replete. It's totally stacked to the gills with acronyms, right? And I'm going to come back to this subject later, but acronyms are the enemy. Acronyms are the enemy of transparency. They're the enemy of clarity. They're the enemy of understanding and discussion. And every time, every school district brings another one of these acronyms down from Richmond or from Washington, and you don't have any say in the matter because it's been vetted by experts, and you don't know what to say because they come in and they say, well, this is now CCL, or this is now SEL, right? And I'm sure you've all heard of SEL. What is SEL? What does that entail? Can we have a full explanation of accounting, and especially how much money you paid for it? Who did you pay this money to? But that's never explained. That is one thing that people never get out of the superintendents, of the Department of Education, of all these things. Why? Because there's a gravy train. And the first job to getting a handle on the expenses, right, is pulling the plug on the gravy train, right? You've got to stop the hand-in-hand, the hand-in-glove, collaboration, cooperation, conspiracy between these educational mavens who either work in Richmond or work in the private sector. Now, this principal of mine who's a nice guy, right? He did a ton of things like this. We're always getting another acronym. Every year we got a new acronym, right, that we're doing. And a lot of them I was like, oh, and I'm a new teacher, so I was like, I don't know about this. This seems like a lot of acronyms. Of course, I forgot them, right? I mean, I forget acronyms, I'm always, mixing up the letters on occasion. But at the end of his tenure, right, and I got to see him in his last couple of years, so he was almost brand new when I started there, and he was close to the end of his tenure when I left. He had started his own educational consulting firm, and he was working with the people that made the CLT, and he was using that to try to, enhance his opportunities there. And it was like, well, nobody begrudges someone for making money or for being an entrepreneur, right? But this is going on all the time. And I think that's job one. I mean, there's so many acronyms now with the coronavirus that are coming down the pike that people don't even know about, right? But they're coming one after another. They're coming straight out of Richmond, right? And there's nothing people can do because what do they get when they ask the question, why do we need this? They get an acronym, and that doesn't explain anything. So that would be my job one, is pull the plug on the acronym gravy train. Number two, I think, just a very practical matter, I think they need to look at facilities. Facilities are a gigantic line item. It's one of the most expensive, and that's obviously the biggest part of Warren County's budget. So facilities, I think, need to have a good going over. Sometimes facilities are mutually exclusive with the kind of special services that so many kids need, because the facilities, whether they're technological or something else. And again, once technology gets introduced to the classroom, it's not supported, right? It's obsolete in about 10 minutes, right? And most of the teachers can't use it, So there's my answer. Thank you.
Antoinette, your answer.
So budget is one of our biggest concerns. As community members, most of us probably function on a budget. So the Warren County Public Schools budget is available. It's online. You can look at it. It's a huge document. If you have the time to sit down and look at it and take a look at it. However, lots of people don't. They don't understand what all those line items are. They don't understand where that money is going to. So I definitely want to make sure that we are accountable and transparent to our community members for the money that we are bringing in. If you take a look at that, we get our money from 4 different places: the state, the local, the federal government, and miscellaneous. 50% of our money comes in from the state, 4% comes from the federal government, 45% comes in from our locality. That's your tax dollars. Of that money, right now, 76% is being spent on or slated for instruction. 10% for operations and maintenance, and then it goes down from there, with the next one being 4.5% is for transportation. Now, I've lived in the community for 22 years, and the whole time I've been in this community, and I know that transportation has been an issue with our public schools. So a couple of the things that I would look for as the board member is, number one, making sure that we communicate and we're transparent with our community and our parents. This, I get it, we have to have this, but let's also make it user-friendly. Let's make it user-friendly so that everyone understands what our budget is, where we're putting our money. Let's also open up those avenues of communication. We have a ton of different ways that we can communicate with parents. Let's make those also user-friendly. So in looking at the budget, what I would do is first look at it line by line. You have to take the time. And then I would go back and ask and look for the 2012 budget. See where that money has increased. You can look at the big numbers, but you need to look at the smaller numbers and see where they've changed. That is what we have to look at, the details. And then the next thing is to ask the questions. You have to ask the questions. You have to know, what does this stand for? Although I do know most of those acronyms. There's a ton. I could definitely win that acronym contest. And you have to ask those questions, and you have to have answers. It's holding everyone accountable for our budget and where our money goes.
please.
So I looked over the same budget and I got a summary of salaries and what we're being paid, and it's $64 million budget. Since 2012, the budget has gone up and the student ratio has gone down. And obviously there's been some price increases, materials, what have you. But it does need to be gone line by line. If you're increasing so much and your population is going down, you have to have some balance somewhere. I've reviewed budgets for all various organizations I've been in, and you don't assume from last year. So I'm a committee chair for two scouting units actually, and every year we sit down and we do our budget, and we don't start our budget based on what we had last year, because I may not have the exact same stuff, or maybe I want to change stuff, or maybe it's not applicable now. So you don't start with what you had last year. You start with a base. You start with nothing. Like you go from nothing and then build from there. So if last year you spent $36 million on buildings, you need to evaluate that. Do you need to budget $36 million on buildings? And I'm just throwing that number out there. I don't know if that's the accurate number because it's all in my paperwork. But you need to be accountable, and you need to do a line-by-line budget. And anyone who is starting on the board who is getting this position needs to demand that we do a line-by-line budget and see where's our money going? How are we best serving our students? So fiscally responsible. That's what we need to be. Thank you.
Melanie, please.
Okay, so I have to be the person that nitpicks the question a little bit. Our budget has actually gone up every year for 20 years. The decline in students started in 2012. So we've had this budget hike for 20 years, and that's as far back as my data goes. I got the same budget when I was appointed to the school board. I got zero explanation for it whatsoever. Nobody went through it with me. Nobody explained it to me. I have certainly been asking questions. I think I'm annoying most of them asking them. I have signed up to go to a budget training next month because I want to learn as much about the budgeting process as possible before I get a chance to participate in it. I too believe in zero-based budgeting. And one of the concerns that had caught my eye with the budget back in 2019, I believe it was, when I was working with the Warren County Coalition, is our budgeting methods seem a little outdated to me. When I had approached the county about looking at their budget, Tony Carter handed me a stack of binders. I'm sure, Mike, you remember helping me carry them all back to the house. That's not what budgeting looks like when I see him do budgeting for his corporation. We really need to be able to dive deeper into it and see specifically where this money is going and have it be justified. One of the concerns that I have had is all of our new school builds and renovations, they somehow end up going grossly over budget. I had a very pleasant opportunity to tour AS Roads last week and see all the renovations. I love the school, I love the renovations, but that was planned to be $3.1 million. It ended up being $6.8 million. How does that happen? Something went wrong. I look at the 15th Street School, which I don't know if any of you remember that, but it's now where the voter registrar's office is in the Health and Human Services building. For some reason, I guess we decided to just give that school away. They did some sort of a leasing option, but AS Roads is bursting at the seams. We're looking at potentially having to build a new school in North River District when we had a school that could have been renovated and utilized for that purpose. So those are my thoughts on the budget. Thank you.
Second question now for the school board candidates. And we'll start with Antoinette. This past July, the Warren County School Board voted in favor of the Virginia State Board of Education's model policies for the treatment of transgender students in Virginia's public schools. Say that fast 3 times. Do you agree or disagree with that policy? Please explain your reasons for your support or non-support for the policy. If you disagree with the policy, do you have a suggestion for changing the policy or better implementation in our local schools?
So if I would have been sitting on that board, I would have not voted in favor of that policy. What I did do as an active community member is I took the policy, I read it, I highlighted all of my concerns, and I emailed Dr. Ballinger, and I asked him, what are the practical implications of this policy? The reason that I would have not voted for it is because we have to deal with, in our county, in our community, in our schools, with the implications of how to put this in place. Our responsibility as educators is to educate every student in a safe and supportive environment. It is not to group students. It is not to divide them. Our responsibility is to educate them all. And so part of what I did was email him, ask, what does this look like in practice? Because education comes first. And in order to do that, we have to make sure we are providing equal access where all students feel safe. In the Warren County Public Schools core belief, the very first bullet is equal access. The second one is everyone deserves a high quality education. So we cannot keep dividing students. We have to protect all students in order to do that. What I would have liked to have seen done is to take a look at our structures. What are our current structures? What do students have access to? And see what we could have done in order to do what we needed to do to comply if necessary, and ask questions. What happens if we don't? The bottom line is we often get mandates sent to us, and then here in the localities, we're responsible for putting them in place without any guidance or assistance. It's just put them in place. So we have to ask the tough questions. We have to have those courageous conversations to make sure at the end of the day, we're doing our job in educating all students, supporting all students to make sure they all feel safe coming to our school.
Your response?
So, when this policy came up, I had to do a ton of research, because you have to follow all the lines, you have to follow all the Virginia Code 22.3 dash whatever, you know. You have to go around in circles to figure out what it's actually saying. And then eventually you get to the policy that she held up, and you have to read through it, and you have to read all the fine print, and you have to figure out what it says. And once I read through it, I had very huge concerns about this, not just for privacy issues for our students, but also for parental rights. So I raised those concerns. I contacted my school board. I contacted the community to let them know that this was being voted on, so that they could get community involvement, because that's what you're supposed to do as a board. You're supposed to invite your public and get their opinions as well. No, I do not agree with the policy, obviously. What I had suggested, and I actually spoke at some of the meetings, and I had planned to speak at the last one when they kicked everyone out, but I had suggested that they evaluate their buildings before they did any more voting. They need to evaluate all the buildings, find out what they could do to change to individual stalls. Anyone who's attended public schools, even private schools maybe, realizes that the bathroom is not always, there's always issues, you know, and there's always something, if there's some trouble going on, it's usually in the bathrooms, you know. So it's been an issue for generations. So why haven't we thought about changing the bathrooms into individual stalls before now? Why is this pushing this issue? This should have been thought about long ago. But that was my suggestion. Evaluate the schools, find out how you can accommodate the bathroom and the locker room situation. The other part of that policy took away parental rights, as well as dealt with when you go on field trips, not informing parents if your daughter or your son was rooming with someone of the opposite sex. And in the schools, they would not have informed the parents if your daughter or son wanted to go by pronouns or names that differed than what they were born as. To me, that is a huge parental violation. You can't assume that the parents are going to react negatively and kick the student out, which is what was spoken in one of the Virginia lectures, webinars that I watched about treating transgender students, is that they were afraid that if they told the parents would automatically just kick that kid to the curb and have nothing to do with them. So I like I said, investigate the bathroom situation, figure out how we can make them individually, but we need to preserve parental rights. We need to figure out how we can take back our schools and take back our children as parents.
So actually, it was Stephanie that brought my attention to the transgender policies. This was before I was on the school board. And so I did my research. Here's my binder for that one. I downloaded the Grimm case. I downloaded the state law. I downloaded the model policies. And as she stated, there were concerns that went far-reaching, wider than just bathrooms. It's locker rooms, it's showers, it's hotel stays for overnight trips, it's the parental rights. It's asking children as young as 5 what pronoun they want to be called by. And the phone calls I have now gotten since being on the school board from parents after the first day of school, as their young children who are in late elementary, early middle school, they were upset because their children came home saying that their teachers asked them what their pronoun was. They didn't know, the child didn't know what that meant, so then they ended up getting an explanation as to what that meant, and obviously the parents were very upset by that. One of the other things that's very concerning is that the parents don't have a right to know what name their child is going under or what gender they're going under. That's not acceptable. There were a ton of issues with these policies, and I was very proud when the school board first voted it down. What I was not proud of is when they then turned around and voted it back in because they got scared. I do not govern and vote from a place of fear. I govern and vote from a place of what is right. I think we could have met these transgender children's needs in ways that did not infringe upon the privacy of other children and did not trample the parental rights of all of the students. Thank you.
So I have another story I'd like to share. This one concerns, not unrelated, but not identical situation, but it was the one that came up after the George Floyd riots. And the schools felt very energized and probably with good reason to do something about it. This was, of course, when we were all still at home under quarantine and under distance learning. And one of the things they did was, as part of the summer reading, and then throughout the next year, they recommended this book by a gentleman named Ibram Kendi, right? And I don't know if some of you know this book, but there may be things in it that are true or relevant, but the person who wrote the book has been quoted in the media as saying that parents or white parents who adopt black children are racist, and that somehow it's a manifestation of racism, right? Well, you might guess that I found this deeply offensive, right? But not only is it offensive, what it does is it puts a wedge between people. It is a division, as Antoinette was saying, between people to identify them as, obviously racist or not racist, but immediately to look at that as the perspective from which their relationships are going to go forward. So I think that's very dangerous, and it's also sinister, because I don't understand why that kind of comment from someone wouldn't cause public school officials, who are ordinarily very cautious. I mean, in public school and even in politics and government generally, people are exceptionally cautious about saying even the slightest thing that would offend anyone. But nonetheless, in grinding some of these axes, they're willing to say things that are outrageously offensive. They're calling people hateful, racist, without any evidence whatsoever to this effect, as part of this Jeremiah, this crusade that is now being run through public schools. So I think that is the essential element here, that the crusade itself has to be stopped, right? And people that engage in it themselves have to be removed. Someone that gives lip service, or worse, that facilitates these kinds of things has to be removed from their office. They have to be removed from their position. Why? Because it is divisive. These are not, I don't think there are children with problems. In fact, I can speak from personal experience. I have more than one student who has gone through this in my classroom. So as very young high school students, they've experienced some difficulty, trauma, and for them, this has become something that's a part of their life. And I don't know quite what to do with them, certainly. And it's really strange for me because I have to talk about some things which are, can be a little bit anxious for them. They make angst. So what I would say is I fundamentally disagree with the use of public schools to pursue ideologies. You should not change the facilities to support one ideology or another. Ideology is wrong. Human beings have an essential nature, and one that is based in God's image, right? And we must do the most we can to love that image in other people. And if there is something that needs to be done, like a bathroom for general use that people can make use of when they have particular circumstance, anxiety, whatever, then we can make that determination at that point. Thank you.
Move to question 3 for the school board candidates. Stephanie, we're going to start with you on this one. Currently, there is no approved process for the public, particularly parents' groups, to review and comment on the curriculum and teaching material used in public schools. Do you view this lack of public input to the county schools' education development as a problem? In part 2, would you explain your position and please provide us your suggestions for addressing that challenge?
So I will say I'm completely opposite of what was recently broadcast in the political debate saying parents have no rights to tell the teachers or the school what they think is appropriate curriculum for their child. And the fact that it was said a couple times is really disturbing to me personally, and I'm sure to some of you. So yes, I think parents, I think community, pastors, anyone has a right to review the curriculum. I would like, when I get on the board, I would like to create a committee of community leaders, of parents, that could do such a thing. Every year there's curriculum changes or even online virtual whatever programs they're using. That comes up every year. In fact, at one of the last board meetings, they were talking about what they were changing. So, because they're constantly looking. So right now, they're probably looking for next year. It's ahead of time. So I would definitely be wanting to form a committee of parents, of community members, to go through and look at the curriculum choices and to thoroughly look at them. Now, sometimes I know that they've made announcements, because I've been going to the school board meetings for years and years and years, and they'll say, the 8th grade history curriculum is changing and we want some community input. And they'll put it in the library, because I've been there and I've looked at it. But it's in the library for like 1 week and it's announced once. So if you're not attending the school board meetings quite frequently, like I tend to do, then you wouldn't have even known that it was coming up and that it's there. So you need a committee, you need some peer review. It's always good to have someone looking over your shoulder to make sure that things are how they should be. So that's what I would like to see.
So I think Terry McAuliffe made it very clear that he doesn't want parents having any involvement in what is taught. And the fact that he was already governor before confirms for me my suspicions that the public school system's been trying to get parents out of the way for quite some time. As Stephanie mentioned, so I had asked about this process a couple weeks ago after there were concerns with pornographic library books and other counties. They were not here. They were in other counties, but not here. But I started asking these questions. And I was told exactly that when there's a new textbook to be reviewed, it is put at Sand Hills Public Library, and parents can go in and review it. As a homeschooler who reviews curriculum for my children, I can tell you there's no way I would have time to sit down in a week and read their entire textbook all the way through. It's just not practical. They did tell me that the VDOE has put out new standards of learning for the family life education, and so they are going to be putting together a community involvement team. So I'm going to call on all of you to please, let's team up, let's get in on these meetings and get involved. We can't just say, hey, parents want to be involved, and then not have parents getting involved. One of the things, going back to the transgender policies, was part of those VDOE model policies was to incorporate in the LGBTQ into the core subjects. So while you have the right to opt out of family life education, how are you going to opt your child out of LGBTQ English assignments and math assignments and history assignments? They want that now worked into all of those core subjects. So parents, I'm on board, but I need all of you to be on board, really get in there, and let's take back our children's education.
In fact, I'd like to return just for 1 second. It's related, but to the question of the bathroom issue and the infusion of ideology into the schools. And I think it's just come up over the last few days now that we've finally gotten the rulings down on athletes now that are going to be excluded from sports, right? Now the kids aren't going to be excluded from the classroom yet, right? But the athletes are going to be excluded from sports if they don't get the vaccine, and it's going to be, I think it's 16 by November, right? They have to, if they're over 16, they have to take the vaccine by November, and then they've already projected out, I heard several of the governors talking about 12 and up, right? Now that's clearly ideology, right? They're carrying water for Biden's unconstitutional infliction of mandatory vaccines on the country, right? The science on whether or not and the effect that it will have on kids is totally not available at this point, right? And so the notion that you could deny people all of these rights to participate in extracurricular activities, which are constantly the focus of litigation, right, throughout the country, Title IX and everything else, and yet at the same time, not talk about the safety of other students in bathrooms because the subjective difficulty might arise is clearly ideological on its own, right? They're both the same issue. And I think the fact that, you know, the vaccine mandates are being railroaded, and right now it's just for the athletes, but I mean, I think it'll eventually be for all students is just reprehensible. And it also, obviously, I don't like the word hypocrisy because I think it's a cop-out. You really have to show why the person is being disingenuous. Just showing that someone's being hypocritical doesn't get it done. But I'd like to just say that again. As regards the curriculum, obviously, I fully support that parents should be involved with all curriculum revisions. We have, as they mentioned, a number of them coming down the pike. The state standards of learning, another acronym, SOL. The programs of studies are also being revised right now in accord with a lot of ideological issues, right? And parents should have input on all of that. And again, the parents don't have a lot of time, right? So an acronym like POS, bad one, and SOL, right? They don't help parents to understand what's at stake here, but it's taking things out that the parents might have agreed with that are in the curriculum and replacing them with things they may not, or just removing them altogether because they're too difficult for some students, right? And I think the last part that we see here is that parents also should have input in whether or not advanced courses are offered. We can't be all things to all people, but removing that and then having, you know, tons of new people on the campus for other purposes, right? Just at my school, we got, there's now somebody that just tracks COVID in the school. That's all they do, right? And that person's cashing a paycheck, right? And that's money that could go to somebody that's teaching, okay? Thank you.
So the first thing that we need to to do to address this is have a process. Processes can be good when they're done appropriately. We need to have a process, and we need to be consistent. Consistency is a huge key because we can't do it for one part of the curriculum and not the other. We have to have a process. We have to be consistent. A major key component to this is accessibility and collaboration. Number one, we have to make sure that our parents and our community members are aware and they have accessible avenues to participate. If we don't get those lines of communication open to our community and to our parents, then they don't have the opportunity to participate and build that bridge with us. So we have to make sure there's a process, it's consistent. We have to have it accessible and user-friendly. It has to be in a user-friendly format. Our newspapers are written potentially on a 5th grade reading level, so we need to make sure that everybody can access the information. And then I go back to the 3 things that I have based all of my communications on and my information on is transparency, accountability, and integrity. Because we are here to educate. We are here to educate every student, no matter their level, no matter their need. It's our responsibility to meet them where they are and educate them to ensure that they have progress. No one's perfect, but we can ensure progress. Thank you.
Okay, so candidates, we have the final question this evening, and Melanie, it's going to be for to start this one off. Since parents of private school students and homeschool students pay the same county taxes as other county residents, do you believe that county resources, facilities, and other county programs supporting the public school students should be available for non-public school students? Please explain your position on this situation. If you believe there are opportunities for supporting non-public school students, please offer some suggestions that you would consider as a member of the school board.
So I think first we have to identify what is the goal of schooling. Why do we spend all this tax money on schooling? It's to raise educated, successful adults, because that is what the next generation will be. They will be the next round of voters, and they will eventually be taking care of us. So the goal is ultimately to just raise successful adults. Why would we not want to help all children be successful adults? Education, as we saw during COVID, took on so many different methods. We had hybrid learning, we had virtual learning, and then of course we have private schools, homeschools, co-ops. We're all taxpayers, so why should we not benefit from the schools that we're paying into? During COVID, I spent a lot of time helping parents learn how to homeschool. Parents who didn't necessarily want to homeschool, but felt thrust into that position. They felt ill-equipped. I helped them pick curriculum. One of the things that I would love to see the school system implement is, if you're homeschooling your child, why shouldn't you be able to go up and rent a textbook from the school, borrow it, and use that textbook at home if you want to? Get the standards of learning lists, and have the school aid in whatever way the parent wanted. The facilities, I know gentlemen have told me that they get to go pick up basketball games. So if we're letting seniors and friends go do that, why would we not offer that same opportunity to all of the Warren County students? Thank you.
I agree with most of what Melanie said there. I think it's kind of a no-brainer that if we've got kids that benefit from resources that are not under current use by other students, that there should be, accommodations made there. I'm not sure that the textbooks are necessarily the ones that homeschooling parents want to borrow, right? I'm not so enamored of my textbook, but they can be helpful. It's a lot of times a good dictionary in the back or glossary. But I also think that the facilities themselves, right, are oftentimes used, as Melanie mentioned. We have church groups that meet in my school over the weekend, right? It's not that difficult. We just have to put our stuff away, lock it in a cabinet, and they meet there, and that's obviously a reasonable accommodation. Nor do I think that the athletic facilities, which are oftentimes have a strange provenance. So I know some people in town are a little bit involved with this. Not that they had nothing untoward there, but that so much money is spent on the turf fields, on the fancy tracks, and on that kind of stuff. And there's another area where I think the schools need to have some more transparency and accountability. I mean, we all love football. I love football. We all love athletics, I think. We all like to see the kids playing and developing those character traits that come through athletics. So that's obviously something that those facilities can be used for outside of the specific demographic that they're assigned to. But also, it'd be interesting to know exactly what sorts of bargains are being made, and why wouldn't that allow people outside of the school to use them? So if they're being paid for in ways which are unusual, maybe parents want to know that too, right? If somebody is laying claim to them because they have done some work to raise money for them, and yet their school is picking up the other part of that, that's also something the parents should know about. And they shouldn't be allowed to say, well, we can't have people on the turf because they might mess it up, and we have these people that help to pay for it. All right, so that would be my approach there, but I kind of think it's a no-brainer, just like Melanie said. Thank you.
So the first thing that comes to my mind is if you keep doing the same thing and you keep getting the same results, why are we doing what we're doing? We can look back historically and look at our outcomes, and we need to answer that question. If we keep doing the same thing and we're getting the same results, then why are we continuing to do what we do? This last year and a half has opened up a lot of doors and a lot of opportunities. We've learned a lot about education, and we have, if you didn't recognize it now or before, you definitely should recognize it then. Education is not a one-size-fits-all. Students are a variety of different learners. We have to meet them where they are. Typically, a lot of counties will have a use of facilities process. So, in looking at this, we need to look at what is that current use of facilities process? What kind of opportunities does it allow? More importantly, does it allow for collaboration with our community members, with all of our stakeholders to access what the students need to be educated? I go back to process and consistency and making sure that we have something in place where, again, we can educate everybody and everyone can benefit from that. Because at the end of the day, each of us are going to benefit from the education that is provided to our youth. Because we're only going to be around here for so long, and they are going to be the ones in charge. And we want to make sure that if we want to have a good community, we want to make sure that we are educating all of our youth.
So should the facilities be available to all students? Yes. I will tell you, as being a member of various nonprofit organizations, to try to get usage of the school is very difficult, and you have to pay a fee even if you're a nonprofit. And of course now with all the COVID restrictions, it's like 0% of getting in. But even prior to COVID, even as a nonprofit with the Boy Scouts, we had to pay a fee to use their building. And it may have been a discount fee, but it was still a fee. And it was for community members to come learn about an organization that sponsors the youth, that helps them learn all the traditional American values. So there is a facility use agreement in place. It's just not very obtainable sometimes for local groups. So say you have a co-op that maybe they don't charge the parents but maybe $5 for the year to buy their school supplies, right? So if the school wants to charge $150 to use their school for a 1 or 2 hour period, and granted, some of that money goes towards paying the custodial staff, so you do have that fee in there, but it doesn't equal out. That co-op and those people, the parents who are paying those taxes to the county, they still have no use of that building because of the fee structure. So you also have to look at your fee structure, your facility use agreement, and all that. Everyone should have equal opportunity to facilities that are paid for with our tax dollars. I mean, that's simple. That's as simple as it can be, you know. So I agree. Anyone should have use to the facility. Make it user friendly. Make it manageable and obtainable by groups that maybe are not bringing in the profit.
So that concludes the questions we have for the candidates this evening. I want to thank them for their answers, and at this time we'll ask them for their closing remarks. They have 3 minutes to do so. I'm going to start down with the town council candidates, and Amber, you're up first.
Thank you. I want to thank the organizers of this event for allowing us to come here and speak tonight and giving us a safe platform to be able to speak to all of you. I've heard politicians my entire adult life stress the importance of every single election cycle. I used to roll my eyes at it because I've learned now elections do have consequences. But I truly believe that the races that are being presented to us across the state this year are and will be pivotal pertaining to the history of the Commonwealth. No matter what happens after an election cycle, we must continue to live, work, play, and love this community. As someone who was born and raised here in Front Royal, Warren County with a lifelong line of family history invested in this community, I am seeking the opportunity to join the Front Royal Town Council because I know we as a community can look better, be better, and do better. I'm asking for your support on November 2nd, and I am willingly and eagerly seeking this seat because I know that I am a voice of solid conservative governance. I cannot and will not be bullied by anyone or anything. I have strong conservative convictions that I have and will continue to fight for by any means necessary. I can provide enthusiastic support and leadership to the current town council, and I truly believe that I can be a voice of reason during some of the contentious times that they face. Not only have I worked to elect Republicans to office for the last 10 years, but I've also shown up to support them post-elections. I've been at the town council meetings in favor of the tax reductions. I intend to lower the taxes again and again while I serve the Front Royal Town Council. At the end of my tenure on the Front Royal Town Council, I want to be able to say that Front Royal has the lowest tax rates in the state of Virginia. I also want to continue to fund the police thoroughly. I am the daughter of a law enforcement officer. I am the sister of a law enforcement officer, and that is something near and dear to my heart. I am pro-life, believing and knowing that life is from conception to natural death. And I intend to continue serving this community by holding our elected officials accountable for their promises. Front Royal is the place that I intend to raise my children, and I plan to do so while rising to the occasion to serve Front Royal. And I will rise to that occasion by continuing to put Front Royal's interests above all of the liberal state and federal mandates. Thank you.
Yes, well, first of all, I want to thank you all for having me here tonight. It's been a pleasure. I want to say that I've worked for multi-million-dollar, sometimes one company was like a $5 billion operations. I do audits and oversight basically for a living. I can tell you right now there won't be any EDA scandals on my watch. I'm going to ask the questions. I would have supported Bevan Eggers right down to the end. I want to say that I'm doing everything impromptu tonight. I'm not going to, I want to tell you the things who I am from the heart. I want to keep our taxes low. Like I said, your property values have gone up. You're going to pay more taxes. I'm going to make sure that I'm going to try to make sure if I can get my fellow councilmen to equalize so that the taxes don't go up. You're not paying more because the inflation rate is going up. We're at 5%. Look, infrastructure is important, but I'm not going to let taxes hit you to pay for the infrastructure issues. Right now we're paying, we get our energy from AMP Ohio. 92% of it is from fossil fuels. 8% of it comes from hydro, solar, wind. Look, we have to move, we need a derivative. In any investment, you need a derivative to counteract that so that our energy costs aren't going to go up. If AMP Ohio can't do it, then we need to go somewhere else, right? Our water issues are huge. I talked about that earlier. The fact that Frederick Water is looking at working with the county. Apparently we have this cash cow going on. This needs to be addressed because it's capitalism. It's capitalism. So what would you do if you could cut your cost in half? You would go with Frederick, right? So our town needs to be looking at that. I'm all about working with the county. I want to engage trust, cooperation, and confidence back into the town and the county. And I would appreciate your vote. I will serve you well. That is a promise. Thank you.
I know, especially considering Governor McAuliffe's and also our current HHS Secretary, Javier Becerra's recently expressed views that some educators will disagree with me about what I see as the primary problem in education today, namely the involvement in education of ideology over the family. But as someone with a great deal of experience in education, from bachelor's degrees from Rice University, master's degree from the University of Dallas, and PhD coursework from the Catholic University in my discipline, as well as my educational and professional development coursework for my teaching license from UVA. I know that it's my experience as a father and someone who has worked to support parents that is the experience that counts the most. Parents know their kids, and the love of a parent for the child is the best guarantee that a child's emotional, developmental, intellectual, and finally spiritual needs are being met. And that's the hierarchy of needs, Pache Maslow, that I aim to support parents as an educator in bringing home and as your school board representative. As you know, I think acronyms are the enemy of transparency. NCLB, Common Core, CRT, CCL, POG, and now SEL, they shortchange explanation and understanding. Maybe C.S. Lewis put this most aptly when he named his most sinister department in That Hideous Strength, nice. These definitely shouldn't be treated as incantations that justify themselves. If they are good, they should be explained to parents' full satisfaction. And global citizenship, values clarification, and social equity are the enemy, really, of the spiritual virtues that these are distillations of. On their own, there's nothing wrong with these things. We can expect good citizens. Who doesn't want a conscientious citizen? But if spiritual is a dirty word that these initiatives keep us from having to talk about, then it's these formulations, the acronyms, the code words, they're the most profane. If we go back to the community I was talking about earlier, the one that we chose to join, that's the community of first parents, children, their families, and yes, God. Those are the building blocks of any society and of any community. The community involved in schools is children, obviously, teachers, or educators, if you will, and parents. But as I said, parents are the primary educators of their children, and schools and teachers do best when they seek to support and partner with parents at the outset. There is no stakeholder, even though I have training in my specialized subject matter and pedagogical training, that I can claim to be. I'm not a stakeholder to the extent that the parents are. I support them, and I have the interests of their children at heart, but I'm not a stakeholder. We need to take those words and evaluate them carefully. Finally, the last thing, I'd like to point to my fellow candidates up here. They really did a tremendous job. I mean, I learned a lot just listening to them up here. And I'd like to ask a little bit why the other candidates who didn't show up tonight chose not to. We were under the impression that they were going to, right? We had a very engaging and edifying conversation. I'm distilling something here, but I'm wondering, for those of us here who identify as Trump Republicans or Republicans, I'm also a Republican endorsed candidate, why did our colleagues that are on the ballot not come? The last thing I'd leave you with is, remember, if you're going to vote for me, you have to write my name in. So I'm a write-in candidate. My name is, I shouldn't do this on camera, but Al Gunn, okay? Al Gunn, all right? Second Amendment.
Thank you all for the invite for this evening, and thank you all for being here and carving this time out of your busy schedules. I've had the opportunity to share with you and discuss education, showcase my experience, my education, and my passion for serving the students and the staff of Warren County. I've been able to share with you my views on current issues and my ideas that can lead Warren County and its students forward. I'm the advocate our students need and the voice our students deserve. I have the institutional knowledge, the educational experience, and the advocacy passion to build bridges, not agendas, for our students. Let's educate our students. Let's teach them how to think and not what to think. Let's work collaboratively with all of our stakeholders, most importantly, our parents. And let's move our students forward through education. I'm a candidate who will serve with integrity, accountability, and transparency. And I will demand the same for our county. I will ask questions, I will research, and I will take on the courageous conversations that we need to happen in order to support our students. My role as one of the 5 elective school board members is to make sure every student has the opportunity to experience an educational pathway that keeps them safe, meets their needs, and equips them for a future outside of our school system. We all benefit from educating our youth. I will advocate for a fiscally sound budget, making sure our tax dollars go towards our students and are being used to support our students in classrooms. I will advocate for improved student achievement across the board. This can be done with vigilant expectations, policies, deliberate fiscal and strategic planning. We can provide for successful outcomes for our students because hard choices can and will make better schools. I believe in and will invest in our public schools. I will showcase their strengths, and I will work in all the good that's happening in them, and I will work to improve the weaknesses. We can fix our areas that are inadequate. I will work to make sure students and parents work collaboratively with the system because we, as parents, know our children best, and we need to always be heard. Parents are the integral part of our child's success. If there's one thing you remember this evening, I'll go back to it. It's the experience, the education, and the passion. That's what I bring to the table to get the job done. If you have any questions, please reach out to me. I'd love to talk with you. Our students are worth it, and I humbly ask for your vote on November 2nd.
Thank you again for the opportunity to speak to you all. As a side note, I want to applaud all the parents who brought their children to see this process because they won't learn how how all this happens if you don't teach them that. And so the fact you brought them here to see a debate and to learn about other people's opinions and how you make your decisions is very admirable. And if nothing else, at least maybe it'll get people involved. Come to the school board meetings, come to your board of supervisors meeting, come to your town council meetings, get involved. So to reiterate some things that we talked about, I'm a conservative parent of 4 boys. I believe that school boards should be transparent in their finances, doing a line-by-line budget, settling at a zero base and going from there. They should be assuring accountability to their constituents. One person had asked me at one point, would you consider doing a transparent banking where you post every check that you, or every bill that you pay online? If it doesn't violate any law, sure, because in that case that he cited, which was in Michigan, I believe, and one of you may have told me this, I can't remember, they cut their budget in half just by posting everything online. Transparency, you need transparency. So I have children of my own who have advocated in schools. I've had to fight the public school system to get services for my special needs children for years, and literally fight and threaten to sue at one point. So to find someone who is willing to buck the system because they are not part of the system is a huge deal. As a parent, I've experienced that. I'm willing to go to bat for any of you who need help in that area. I believe that ideology and political agenda do not belong in school. We've already covered this. The schools are for educating, not indoctrinating. Obviously, parental rights is the biggest, one of my dearest and held to my heart things. I have always been the person, my husband and I, who choose what is right for our children. And if it's public school, private school, homeschooling, an online virtual school, you are the keeper of your children. You should have the last say in what happens in those schools. The school is not the second mother, as some articles I've read has said. So protecting all children, parental rights. If I can just leave you with a few thoughts. A school board member should be a leader in their community, someone that people look up to and respect. They should have a passion for what they do and are eager to serve their community. They should advocate for students and families. They should be someone who's willing to listen, be receptive, and learn. However, they should also be someone who's willing to stand up for truth and American values. We need someone to take a stand, because if we don't stand for something, we stand for nothing and we'll fall for everything. I would also like to say, if you have questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I can get you my contact information. I'm more than happy to talk to anyone. And like I said, if nothing else, I hope this makes you all get involved. Get involved in your local politics. Get involved in your school boards. Thank you.
So I want to make sure that everybody here understands we're at a crossroads. And the outcome of this election will determine which path our society is led down. The leaders we choose will determine some very serious matters. As a mother, I felt it was my duty to step up to serve our community when the opportunity presented itself. I want to ensure that my most precious treasures, my children, have a world that is safe and free. I want to live in a country in which parents are recognized and respected as being the primary caregivers and educators. I do not want the state challenging me for my role as a parent. I believe positive changes can come from the struggles that we faced over the last year due to COVID. I believe we are on the verge of an educational revolution. I am excited by the ideas that Glenn Youngkin is bringing to public education, and I am excited to serve on the school board with him as a governor. I hope to see a broader view of what public education can look like. We have the opportunity to truly recognize the uniqueness of every child and provide them with an educational experience best tailored to them. As a homeschooler, I will bring a fresh perspective to the board and fulfill the need for representation of the quarter of all Warren County students who are opting for alternative education options. In closing, I will make my platform simple. I believe in parental rights and parental involvement. The state does not own our children. I am pro-education, but anti-indoctrination. I like fiscally responsible budgets. I am for supporting teachers so they don't want to leave the profession. I research, I question, I like logical solutions. And one thing I hope everybody already knows about me from my involvement in the many issues over the past few years is that I have the courage and assertiveness needed to stand up for what's right. I believe our school board needs my strong voice. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. Wonderful, wonderful evening. Great information. We appreciate your participation here tonight. You provided some tremendous insight into your candidacies to help inform our voting public. I want to make a special announcement too. Stephanie mentioned the parents and bringing them here tonight, the children. This is a wonderful audience. Give yourselves a hand. How great. I got my grandsons coming over tomorrow. I'm going to use these as examples to say, that's how you behave. Tremendous. Unbelievable. Once again, thank you to St. John's for hosting tonight and the organizing committee for putting this together. I want to thank everyone on behalf of them. And as we mentioned earlier, the candidates now will remain. For any of you who want to talk to them on any of the issues and their candidacies, please, thank you. Everyone, please drive safely going home tonight. Thank you again for coming.